The month after the presidential election in 2020, Democratic and Republican electors representing the candidate who won the popular vote in their states gathered across the country to formally cast electoral votes for president. But in 7 states that Joe Biden won, Republican electors got together anyway and cast phony votes for Donald Trump. They've become known as fake electors, and according to federal prosecutors, they were part of a plan to overturn the election, orchestrated by pro-Trump attorneys with Trump's support. State criminal charges have been filed against fake electors in Georgia, Michigan, and Nevada. Wisconsin's fake electors haven't been charged, and several weeks ago, one of them, Andrew Hitt, an attorney and former chairman of the state Republican Party, agreed to sit down with us to explain how he says he and Wisconsin's other GOP electors were tricked by the Trump campaign.
The story will continue in a moment.
You were head of the Republican Party in Wisconsin. Were you a big Trump supporter?
I worked tirelessly for him. Day and night.
Let's put it together for the President of the United States one more time!
Oftentimes, phone calls would start by 6 o'clock in the morning and wouldn't end until 10:30 at night. I did everything I possibly could.
The Wisconsin Republican Party Chairman Andrew Hitt.
Andrew Hitt was often singled out by President Trump at rallies in Wisconsin.
Andrew Hitt. Andrew Hitt. How are we doing, Andrew? Gonna win this state, gotta win it.
But Trump didn't win in Wisconsin. He lost to Joe Biden by some 20,700 votes. The Trump campaign appealed, challenging more than 200,000 absentee ballots on technical grounds in 2 Democratic counties.
If you count the lawful votes, Trump won Wisconsin by a good margin.
That was false. What he said was false.
The Trump campaign wanted the votes in Dane County and Milwaukee County tossed. Did you support that idea?
It wasn't something that I was comfortable with.
Dane County and Milwaukee County in Wisconsin are the most liberal counties. The majority of the black population in Wisconsin live in those 2 counties.
Correct.
Personally, you did not believe all those absentee ballots should be thrown out.
Well, I voted that way. I voted that way.
You didn't think your own vote should be thrown out?
No.
On November 30th, Wisconsin's Democratic Governor Tony Evers certified Joe Biden's victory, authorizing the state's Democratic electors to gather at the state capitol on December 14th to cast their electoral votes for Biden. But days earlier, Andrew Hitt says he received a call from the Republican National Committee.
What was the reach out to you?
Can we get a list of the Wisconsin Republican electors?
That made you suspicious?
It did. I was already concerned that they were going to try to say that the Democratic electors were not proper in Wisconsin because of fraud.
You didn't believe there was any widespread fraud?
No, and I was very involved, obviously, in the election.
Hitt was one of 10 Republicans nominated to be an elector if Trump won in Wisconsin. On December 4th, he says he was advised by the state GOP's outside legal counsel to gather the other Republican electors on December 14th at the Capitol and, as a contingency, sign a document claiming Trump won the state in case a court overturned the election in Wisconsin.
In case the legal arguments that the Trump team is making actually win in court.
Right. And I remember asking, how can this be that a court overturns the election and just because we don't meet and fill out this paperwork on the 14th, that Trump would forfeit Wisconsin? And the legal analysis back was the statute's very clear. The electors have to meet at noon at the Capitol in Wisconsin on December 14th.
That morning, the state Supreme Court, in a 4-3 ruling, rejected the Trump campaign's attempt to throw out more than 200,000 votes. But Andrew Hitt says he and the other Republican electors met anyway to cast fake votes because he'd been told the Trump campaign would appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Kenneth Chesbrough, a pro-Trump attorney who was an alleged architect of the fake electors plan, showed up to watch.
We got specific advice from our lawyers that these documents were meaningless unless a court said they had meaning.
You were deciding to sign this document as an elector and getting the other electors to sign this document based on a court challenge that you yourself don't believe has legitimacy.
I wouldn't say it doesn't have legitimacy. That's different than not personally agreeing with it.
You personally don't believe that legitimate votes by Wisconsin residents should be tossed out, and yet you are signing a document in support of a lawsuit which is alleging just that.
And if I didn't do that, and the court did throw out those votes, it would have been solely my fault that Trump wouldn't have won Wisconsin.
Beautiful kids, Andrew. Good, good. I'm going to blame you, Andrew, if they don't do it.
Can you imagine the repercussions on myself, my family, if it was me, Andrew Hitt, who prevented Donald Trump from winning Wisconsin?
You're saying you were scared?
Absolutely.
Scared of Trump supporters in your state?
It was not a safe time. If my lawyer is right, and the whole reason Trump loses Wisconsin is because of me, I would be scared to death.
Signing legal documents of such consequence that you don't believe in and you don't believe the underlying reason for the documents, it's not exactly a profile in courage.
No.
How do you feel about that now?
Terrible. If I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have done it. It was kept from us that there was this alternate scheme, alternate motive.
That alleged alternate scheme is a prominent part of Special Counsel Jack Smith's indictment of the former president.
Charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States.
According to Smith, what began as a legal strategy in Wisconsin evolved into a corrupt plan involving 6 other states as well.
Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida, number of votes 11.
Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Michigan.
He said we can't enter.
Where some of the fake electors couldn't convince police to let them into the Capitol.
We're electors, sir.
We're electors. Yeah, the electors are already here. They've been checked in.
Jack Smith cites this December 6 memo written by Ken Chesbrough, detailing ways the Trump campaign can prevent Biden from amassing 270 electoral votes on January 6. Smith alleges the multi-state scheme was designed to create a fake controversy and position the vice president to supplant legitimate electors with Trump's fake electors and certify him as president. By January 4th, according to internal emails, some in the Trump campaign were panicking. They believed the fake electors' documents from Michigan and Wisconsin hadn't arrived in Vice President Mike Pence's Senate office.
Your colleague texted you, freaking Trump idiots want someone to fly original elector papers to the Senate president. You wrote, this is just nuts. What was nuts about it?
We have the certification coming on the 6th. How do you not have the paperwork?
You've said that you only went along with this plan to preserve Trump's candidacy in the event of a court ruling. January 4th, just 2 days before January 6th, did you really think that was still possible?
Well, remember the Wisconsin Supreme Court had been appealed, and so January 4th, it seemed like, it's possible that a much more conservative United States Supreme Court could overturn a 4-3 decision.
To get the paperwork to Washington, they picked Alicia Gunther, then a 23-year-old law school student working part-time for Wisconsin's Republican Party.
I was on break from law school and wanted to make some extra money to pay for books and worked for the party for my month off of school. So on January 4th, I got a call from the executive director of the Republican Party of Wisconsin, since I was helping out at the time.
What did you think when you got the text?
At first, I didn't know what it was, and then he followed up and asked, that the Trump campaign wanted these papers flown out to D.C. because they had gotten lost in the mail.
Gunther says she picked up the papers here at the state party headquarters and on January 5th flew to Washington.
So this is the email.
She showed us her email chain with Ken Chesbrough and the Trump campaign's senior advisor, Mike Roman.
Explaining that I should only give the documents to Ken Chesbrough. So, and then they asked me to meet up with him outside the Trump Hotel.
It sounds very secretive.
Yeah, I thought that email was pretty odd and dramatic.
And you knew what was happening on January 6th, in terms of the certification of the vote.
I don't know if I was very tuned into that, truly, because I thought that a court of law would have needed to overturn the election for those documents to be used.
Did you know what Chesbrough looked like?
So he had actually sent me a selfie. So
he sent you a selfie?
Yes.
So that you would know it was him?
Yeah.
Can I see it?
Yeah.
She still has the photo saved on her phone.
That's Ken Chesbrough.
Mm-hmm.
What did he say to you?
He kind of took a dramatic step back and looked at me and said, "You might have just made history."
Ken Chesbrough told investigators he delivered the Wisconsin documents to Capitol Hill. The next day, on January 6, he can be seen in videos outside the Capitol near conspiracy theorist Alex Jones.
I now want to look even more deeply at the fake elector scheme.
According to the January 6 Select Committee, an aide to Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson tried to arrange to get the fake electors' slates to Vice President Pence.
And I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election.
But Pence's aide refused, texting, "Do not give that to him," according to the committee. When the Senate chamber had to be evacuated, the real electoral votes in these boxes were taken to safety. And when Congress resumed, they were returned into the House chamber.
Pursuant to Senate concurrent resolution.
Vice President Pence announced the election results and closed the session at 3:44 a.m. January 7th. The Supreme Court ultimately declined to hear the Trump campaign's lawsuit in Wisconsin.
What do you think about Donald Trump continuing to claim that the 2020 election was stolen?
It wasn't stolen. It wasn't stolen in Wisconsin.
This past December, Andrew Hitt and Wisconsin's other Republican electors settled a civil lawsuit against them by some of the state's Democratic electors. They admitted they signed a document that was used as part of an attempt to improperly overturn the 2020 presidential election results. Hitt resigned as chairman of the Wisconsin Republican Party in August 2021. He's cooperated with the January 6 committee,
using our electors in ways that we weren't told about. And we wouldn't have supported.
And he says he's also cooperated with federal prosecutors. He maintains he and the other fake electors in Wisconsin were tricked.
Whenever anybody sees our text messages, our emails, our documents, they understand, they know, their conclusion is we were tricked. The January 6th committee saw it. Jack Smith, specifically in his indictment, refers to some of the electors were tricked. That was us.
The former president is known to watch 60 Minutes. If he's watching, what would you want to say to him?
I would say that this country needs to move forward. That we need a leader who tackles serious problems and serious issues that this country faces. And we need faith in our institutions again. And the next president of the United States needs to do that.
And in your opinion, that's not him?
It is not him. Correct.
Real electors in Michigan on their fake counterparts.
They were going to try to sneak in the night before.
Right. The night before and sleep in the Capitol.
At 60minutesovertime.com.